we've just had the annual shareholder meeting for Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger get together every year for this event, and each year comes out with its own golden nuggets of investing wisdom and life wisdom actually, and this year was no different. This meeting was literally an all-day event. It lasted hours and it had a really long Q&A session in it as well. Of course, if you do have time, go and watch the entire recording. But if not, I will try and give you some of the most important points from it and things that I found value in. And I urge anyone to add anything that I miss out in the comments below. So the first thing that I found really valuable, and this is general investing advice, was when Warren Buffett said, "I can't recall any time in the history of Berkshire that we made an emotional decision." He is saying that you have to be emotionless when it comes to investing. You really have to make your investment decisions based on research, logic, and facts. You can't just make it on how you feel, and if you're particularly attached to a CEO or a company's products or anything like that, or you just invested with them for a long period of time, you can't let all of that cloud your investment judgment, because at the end of the day, the stock price or the company itself doesn't care about you. They're not making their decisions based on your emotions. So it needs to be reciprocal. You need to make your decisions based on fact and research only. No emotions in this game. And he also said there's still opportunities given so many people have a short-term view and often do stupid things in a panic. He's basically telling us to have a long-term view when it comes to investing and don't be one of those silly people that leads by emotion. The next highlight that I took from this meeting was something that Charlie Munger actually said. And he said that it is absolutely insane to teach that one has to diversify when investing in common stocks. Now, this really does go against a lot of the general investment advice that we hear of, especially when you start out investing. This idea of diversification and not having all of your eggs in one basket is really preached, and quite often for very good reason. It comes down to this whole idea that if you don't really want to spend time researching stocks, then you should diversify so that you take on less risk and you sort of guarantee yourself more of an average return. However, there is this other side of it that if you are willing to do the research and actually understand companies and understand what you're investing in, then diversification doesn't really make too much sense. He went on to say that one of the insane things that's taught in modern university education is that a vast diversification is absolutely mandatory in investing in common stocks. He said that is an insane idea. And his reasoning for this, and the reasoning behind actually many investors, is that it's just not easy to have a vast plethora of good opportunities that are easily identified. So he's saying that there are not that many good opportunities out there. So you can't build yourself a portfolio of 50 different stocks that are all great opportunities, because they just don't exist. Perhaps there are only 3 stocks that are really decent opportunities. And he said, if you've only got 3, I'd rather be in my best ideas than in my worst. And this idea actually is quite common across a few different popular investors. But this does not mean everyone should just pick 3 stocks and put all of their money into it. I really don't believe he's saying this. He's saying that if you do the research, diversification doesn't make sense. If you're not willing to do the research and you just don't understand, then diversification does make sense. He also said that investors should know themselves and know their strengths. So like I was just saying, it really does come down to this idea if you actually understand what you're investing in. And if you don't, then admit that. And don't spend time trying to pick the 3 best stocks if you just don't understand why you're picking the stocks you're picking, because at that point it's just gambling. So he also said, we're not so smart, but we kind of know where the edge of our smartness is. And that's a very important part of practical intelligence. If you know the edge of your own ability pretty well, you should ignore most of the notions of our experts about what I call diversification of portfolios. And I think this term, diversification, however you want to say it, was actually coined by Peter Lynch, who is another very, very famous investor. But it is an idea that's not really spoken about at all. And that's because it kind of rocks the boat on this whole diversification is key principle that we all hear about. But there's actually lots of reasons and lots of research why diversification might not be all that great. So If anything, I just urge you to go and look at the for and against arguments for diversification and then make your own judgment call on it. The next key highlight that I took is more general advice from Warren Buffett. He said that you should write your obituary and then try and figure out how to live up to it, which seems a little bit odd, but it kind of makes sense. He said that this is something that you get wiser on as you go along in life. You just want to make sure that you don't make any mistakes that take you out of the game or come close to taking you out of your game. He said that you should never have a night where you're spending time worrying about investing, assuming that you have any money to actually invest at all. He said always try and spend a little bit less than what you earn, and if you do spend more than what you earn, then you've got yourself debt. And chances are you'll never be able to get out of that debt. But he does make an exception in terms of debt when thinking about mortgages that you can get on a house. So what I took from this is don't take on debt. It's a really common piece of advice given, but it's so important and so many people just don't listen to this because it's so hard to get out of if you get yourself in it. But the exception to the rule here seems to be mortgages. And also spend less than what you earn. And I like to add on to that to invest the difference. Right, the next thing that was made clear in this meeting is Warren Buffett has a favorite stock, and that favorite stock is Apple. I'm kind of joking here, but I'm also kind of not. You've only got to go and look at Berkshire Hathaway's portfolio to know that they are very bullish on Apple. They actually have a 5.6% stake in Apple, which is a very, very large position in this company. So that means out of all the Apple shares, Berkshire Hathaway own 5.6 of them, which is, like I said, a very, very large position. And they didn't really shy away from the fact that they might actually own more in the future, saying that this is the better business that they own. He went on to explain that he believes Apple has a position with consumers where they're willing to pay a lot of money for a phone compared to other objects. And also they're not willing to give up their iPhone. And that's quite a strong customer loyalty. Someone asked him how he feels about the risk level of Apple taking up 35% of Berkshire Hathaway's portfolio, to which he quickly answered that that is not true because he has many wholly owned subsidiaries. But he did go on to add that Berkshire previously had to sell some of their Apple shares, partially for tax reasons, but even so, he went on to say that that was a mistake. So even though Apple is Berkshire's largest publicly traded stock in their portfolio, Warren Buffett admits that he doesn't really understand the iPhone and how it works. But what he does understand really, really well, better than a lot of people out there, is consumer behavior. And I think we can all really learn here from him. In order to be an investor, you have to understand how consumers think and what they do with their money, and what they do with their money through different economic cycles as well. He said, we keep learning as to more about how people behave and how good businesses can turn into a bad business, and how some good businesses can maintain their competitive advantage over time. And I think that's really important in terms of value investing, and most investing types, honestly, is understanding what consumer loyalty is and understanding what a moat is, and why some people time and time again keep buying products from certain companies. So the next thing was the idea of dividends. So when they were asked about the future of possible dividends, Warren noted that Berkshire had paid a dividend once and it was an absolute mistake, because he made the point that Berkshire had the choice to distribute cash in a really significant way by stock buybacks, for example, and he can use that if the stock becomes undervalued. Also, he made the point that he would rather have large amounts of cash on hand than putting that cash towards shareholder dividends, because that makes substantial acquisitions more possible if a really great opportunity is presented. And they said that to those people that are worried that the stock may drop when Charlie and Warren are no longer managing the firm, to not worry, because they have the option to even buy back $50 billion of their own stock if needed. And actually, share buybacks, share repurchases have actually accelerated in the first quarter of this year. Definitely something that they're considering for the future too. What did they have to say about Elon Musk? And this was a really, really interesting part of the meeting, I thought, because I'm an investor into Tesla and I quite like Elon Musk as an individual as well. With that said, someone asked Charlie Munger specifically, you once mentioned you would prefer to hire someone with an IQ of 130 who believes it's 120 over someone with an IQ of 150 who thinks is 170. I understand that you were referring to Elon Musk, and given the recent success of his ventures such as Tesla, SpaceX, and Starlink, I'm curious to know if you still hold that view that Elon Musk overestimates himself. That was a very interesting question. We see lots of different things about how people view Elon Musk, and it's expected given his popularity and how often he and his companies are in the media. So Charlie went on to say, yes, I think Elon Musk overestimates himself, but I also think he's very talented. So he's overestimating somebody who doesn't really need to overestimate to be very talented. And then Warren Buffett chimed in and said, Elon is a brilliant guy. And I would say that he might score over 170 on an IQ test, but he dreams about things and his dreams have got a foundation. He likes taking on the impossible job and doing it. We're different. Warren and I look for the easy job that we can identify. And I found that really quite funny. They're basically saying, Elon is great and he goes and solves impossible tasks and makes them possible. Whereas them two like the easy job and like just finding businesses that will do well. I personally don't think we're going to see Berkshire Hathaway purchase any substantial amount of Tesla stock anytime soon. He made the point that he kind of knows where Apple is going to be in the next 5 or 10 years, but he doesn't really know what the car companies are going to be in 5 or 10 years time. So I guess he would rather place his money on companies that he sort of understands enough to know where they're going in the future. That's not to say that Tesla and other electric car companies aren't good investments. I don't think he's particularly saying that, but he just thinks that his money is best spent elsewhere, I guess. So I'm going to leave it there. I do think there were other important things said in the meeting that I just don't have time to cover today. So if you do want to add any more that I missed out, then I urge you to leave them in the comments below and other people can read them and hopefully get some really good nuggets of information from that. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you shortly in another video.